Everybody, super excited to be with you on our first launch of this Fireside Chat series. And a big part of this is to allow you to see behind the scenes and not in a curated interview style environment. Because I think that the best ideas that I get to share with people are the ones that we share in a living room, the ones that we share over lunch, the one that we share on text message, the ones that we share on WhatsApp, the things, those conversations is what we want to bring to the table. And I thought that wouldn't it be amazing if we could create an environment where all of you could see and feel and experience something special, where you get to see an unfiltered, unvarnished, and a behind the scenes approach on how two people just like you think about the world and how it can help you as well. And to kick this off, I'm super excited for you all to be with my main man, my partner, Tamir Poleg. Tamir, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And Sharon, I'm really excited about our conversation. It's probably the first time in a while that I get to sit for a whole hour with you without you having to look on your phone or being distracted in any way. So you're mine for an hour.
Which is awesome. Hey, Tamir, so here's a crazy question that I want to kick it off with. Some of the folks who are watching may know your journey. Some of them may not. But one thing is for sure, folks that are watching understand how the real estate business works, understand how the mechanics of real estate works. And I will ask you the tough question. The question is, you knew what you were getting into. You knew how fragmented this industry is in North America. You understand the margins. You understand the psychology of the consumer wanting something while putting their entire livelihood on the line. You know how hard agents work because now they have to bring all of these pieces together. You know all of these pieces. And while the average person looking in says, oh, there's this big pool of commissions that we can monetize, which is the tech company's outlook on things, you started this, you wanted to do this for a completely different reason. What is that?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure I knew what I was getting into, but I'll touch on that in a second. In 2013, when I sold my previous company, I found myself with a combination of real estate experience and tech experience. So when I completed my military service, I went to work in construction for a couple of years. So I know real estate very well. I know how to build homes, actually. And then I went into the tech scene for a couple of years, and then I went back to real estate, and I owned a lot of multifamily and single family properties. So I had a lot of experience in real estate transactions. I knew how to build homes. I knew how to leverage technology for businesses in general, and I wanted to converge those two passions. And when I looked at all of the alternatives of what's possible in real estate, helping people is a passion of mine, and I know how critical agents are to the transaction and just for consumers in general. And I simply looked at the different alternatives that agents had when it comes to picking the right brokerage for them and what brokerages were actually providing agents. And I just felt that agents were underserved. But at that point, I decided that I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to helping agents. So we just wanted to create better futures for real estate agents in general. And I can tell you that at the beginning, I mean, obviously, I knew a lot about real estate, but when I'm thinking right now at that point in time in 2013, 2014, I didn't know anything. Like, I didn't know what I was getting into, not necessarily from the real estate point of view, but from how difficult it is to build a business, a large business, and not necessarily a brokerage business, probably any business. Many people on this call have built amazing businesses, and I know it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a year. It just takes a lot of effort. And I think that this is what I was missing. Like, I thought that, okay, I'm going to work hard for 2-3 years, and then it's going to become easy. I'm going to spend a lot of time with my friends and family, and everything's going to be smooth and great. No, I mean, I'm in year 10 into this thing, and I can still tell you that I'm working really hard, and we're having challenges on a daily basis. But if you're trying to ask me what got me into building this, it's just the passion of helping agents create better futures for themselves and their families. That's the kind of one single line I would give.
Yeah, you shared something on one of our internal employee calls, which I thought was super cool. You pulled up like probably one of our early business plans or an early deck, and apart from the clip art that you made yourself on these slides, and the early PowerPoint associated with it, the branding is way better now. But the early stuff, there was one thing in there that matched to today, right? There were two things actually. And one, it was making lives of agents better, or the theme around that. But the second was even the compensation stuff had not changed. What we have today was mirrored with how you envisioned it, like what was the original idea. And you said something yesterday as well, which was hold firm, some version of this, hold firm to your vision, but be flexible in the details, right?
Stubborn on the vision, flexible on the details. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'd say most companies that started or were envisioned 9-10 years ago, that plan looks very different. Yes, the mechanics look very different today, but that one page on agent compensation is very similar, which is eerily powerful if you think about it.
Yeah. So the first office we rented after we raised a little bit of money in 2014, I put a huge sign on top of the door saying, always find ways to make agents' lives better. Now, developers, engineers would come to the office, and I wanted all of the engineers to know exactly what they're doing. Like this code that you're writing, how is it serving someone? And I wanted everyone every day to find ways to make agents' lives better. And I think that this is the one thing that never changed. And actually, you touched on an interesting point, because a lot of companies are pivoting. It's a long journey. Sometimes you have to take a different path. Sometimes the product doesn't fit. Sometimes something goes wrong and you have to change course. And I think that for us, that never happened. Like we never pivoted. From the very beginning, we had this vision of finding ways to make agents' lives better. And this is still what's guiding us. So that's, I think that we're very fortunate to kind of hone on a vision and stick to it for many, many years. And I think that we will continue to stick with it for many years to come. Now, the 85-15 split, which is something that we never changed, and I don't think we will ever change. I think it's just luck, because sometimes you would think that, you build this amazing model and you modeled it like 10 years ahead and you knew exactly how many agents you will have in 2025. No, I was just thinking about, okay, what's fair and what's the minimum amount that we can actually take in order to just provide more to our agents. And 85-15 seemed like the right approach. And yes, it never changed since. So it's funny, when you're building a company, there are so many moments in time where in a hindsight, those are pivotal moments. But at the same time, it seems like small decisions. Like you're saying, okay, we're going to do 85-15 and maybe it'll change, maybe it'll not. But we kept it for 9.5 years. 9.5 years. So sometimes we're making the right decisions.
Well, I'll tell you this, and this is it's a great introduction. And this I want to see if we can move to a more like, hey, it's just Tamir and Sharon on a couch on this one, right? And I want to tell you a story that I have not shared with you. And by the way, for folks that are watching, Tamir knows almost everything about my life, and there's a big
more than I should.
There's a big lesson here, and I want to share it with you. I was talking to my dad recently, and it was very unplanned, and it's super vulnerable for me to share this. And I feel like I left India when I was born in India, and I left India when I was before my 16th birthday, and I have not been back since. And of course, my dad and mom are amazing, and I see them often. They come to visit. But I was chatting with my dad, and I asked him this question. I said, "Hey, Dad, I'd like to do something. I don't know if you're open to it." I said to him, for the next 10, 20 weeks, I want to spend maybe 45 minutes to an hour on Zoom, and I just want to interview you. I want to know about what your earliest memory to today. And my dad was, first he thought it was a gimmick, and he was kind of puzzled. He's like, why? And then I told him one thing, and I was sharing a few of our experiences, and I shared with him, I said, I've been very fortunate over the last kind of 20 plus years to have some decent successes, some exits, and some stuff that didn't go well. And the one thing that I look back and I wish I had done differently, just one thing, was I wish I had documented those learnings during that time. And I wrote this down. And I told him, I said, when you hear something, you get to learn it once. When you teach something, you get to learn it twice. But when you document something, you get to learn it forever. Right? And so this, for us, is I hope that my son Neil gets to see Tamir and Sharon sharing this, which is the best gift that we can give anyone. Like, there's no way we can document this in any other way. I'd say for everyone that is watching this right now, we always think about what I can do for the future, but we don't think about how to document this learning today. And I think that's super, super powerful. And the artifact of that presentation you shared from 8-9 years ago, that was a documentation. That was an artifact that allowed us to know that we're on the right track in so many ways. And I think that sometimes these artifacts, sometimes these documentaries of, even however small they may be, allow us to have these mile markers of, man, this is, I'm looking back and feeling like I'm doing the right thing, or I've learned from it tremendously. I don't know what does that kind of got for you?
So I'll say two things. One, when you talked about your dad, it made me think about the present that we gave my dad last year for his 74th birthday. We had a writer write a biography, his biography. And when I read it, I was totally in tears. Like, there were so many pieces of his past that I just didn't know. And it just made me understand the person that he is so much better. And I think that for everyone on the call, if your parents are still around, and if you have a chance, just try to learn from them about themselves, about their past, about what brought them to where they were, because we should just be grateful for our parents. And I think that it was just a huge gift for me as well, just reading the book, which I was a part of. But all of those moments in which my dad opened up and just shared his childhood memories and his relationship with his mom and everything, it's just priceless. So, but I think that you and I are very, very different when it comes to documentation, because I don't know if I'm weird about it, but I do not really like documenting, because for me, documenting or going back to past documents, and the reason why I shared that presentation with the company is because it was a board deck. So you have to document it, you have to present it to the board. You just have, I mean, I still had it, but I would like to think of myself as trying to live in the future rather than the past. And for me, documenting means that you're living in the past. Like, if you go back and see and look at pictures, I mean, sometimes it's fun, but for me, maybe I'm scared about being stuck in the past. Maybe it's about that. So I rather document as little as possible, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, no, that's awesome. And I think that what it shows is, like, when I shared, this fireside chat with folks, I explained that there is a deep yin and yang for us, right? It's just, that's how you win. And it's you got to be grounded in a bigger and better future, but you learn from the past as well. And how people implement and do that is very different in their lives. And wherever we can seek inspiration from, we do. And that's super powerful. That brings me to
but just one more thing. You mentioned that you wish Neil would watch this fireside chat one day, and it made me think about, every now and then my wife and I are having disagreements on how to raise the kids, and she often brings up the argument of when I was young or when I was their age, I used to do this and that, or my parents used to tell me that. And for me, that's just irrelevant. Like trying to take your past and project it on your kids it's a mistake because they're living in a very different reality. I mean, we're all living in a very different reality from 20, 30, 40, 60 years ago. So I think that trying to apply most of the things that were relevant back then is just a mistake because you're trying to force them to live a life that's very different from their realities. And yeah, I'm constantly trying to think that my kids in many ways are smarter than us and they know better and they're more advanced. And I'm constantly trying to learn their way of thinking because this is the future. I mean, they are the future, not us. Yeah. So let's try and learn from them how the future is going to look like.
Well, I actually would agree that they have a smarter baseline than we do because I explained a card game to Neil over dinner. And he's like, yeah, I know. I think I know what you're talking about. Let's play. I was like, this is insane. I just told you about this game. And he was ready to play, which I'd be like, show me the rules. Like, can we play a test round? I would have done all of that. But I think because of our exposure, hopefully we're pushing them in a lot of powerful ways, right? This brings me to a very interesting point, which is something tactical for agents today. One of the things that you and I end up researching and thinking about and talking a lot about is this backdrop of market dynamics. Whether we like it or not, we have to build a business that transcends market cycles in a lot of ways. And that goes to the heart of both not only perseverance, but also having a robust business model to be able to do that. But not having a sense of what market dynamics look like on a day-to-day basis, I think is a mistake. Just at least we should have some sense of it so we can plan around it. I'd love for you to maybe share. I know you think a lot about, hey, how do these market dynamics work? What is relevant around them? What are some things that you're either philosophically considering or data-wise considering that you're saying, hey, based on the real estate market, I'm looking at these things and these things are interesting to me?
I think I'm looking at the same data that everyone's looking at. Maybe I'm more optimistic. Maybe I'm processing it a little bit differently. But I think that we are close to the end of the downward cycle, or closer to the end than we are to the beginning, which is encouraging. I think that there's still a problem with supply, and that problem will stay here for probably a couple of years. And it'll be interesting once rates, stabilize or drop to around mid fives. It'll be interesting to see how the market reacts, because I think that even though the cost of buying a home is pretty high right now, I don't see how prices could resist going higher, if you understand what I mean. I'm trying to think about what agents can do right now in order to just persevere. And I know that agents are trying everything. I mean, if you have something good going on, just double down on it. My advice to agents would be, don't lose faith. If you trust yourself, I think that psychology plays a significant role here, because if you're optimistic, if you're shining, your business will shine. And if you're a little bit underwater, people will feel it, the business will suffer as well. So you have to keep the momentum going in many ways. I think I'm stepping away from the question. I already don't remember it.
No, what is so what I'm curious about, and I can share a couple, I've shared with you what I like to watch, but is there something that do you like to say, hey, is the health of the market for you based on us hitting 5.5 million transactions a year? Is it based on rates and the sensitivity towards it? Is it based on kind of time from pending to close? Is it based on sales price to list price ratio? Do you care? Do those facts, how much of those facts matter to you?
They matter, but I'll tell you what matters more to me. And I'm also saying that internally. I think that market dynamics or market data is a nice reference point, but at the end of the day, your ability to impact or influence your business is much greater than the market dynamics. And what I'm trying to say by that is, if you look at last quarter, for example, or the last quarter that we reported, Q1, all of our peers, all of them reported declining revenues. We were the only company that actually reported 75% growth, 75% year-over-year growth in one of the worst quarters for real estate in decades. Now, what am I trying to say here? I'm not trying to brag about our performance. What I'm trying to say is, even if the market conditions are against you, you have the ability to outperform significantly, and it's up to you. So the market is not a given. It's just a baseline, and you can build from that. There's an opportunity for everyone on this call, for every agent in America, to do better than they did last year or the year before. It just exists. Obviously, there are some headwinds, but if you manage to win the headwinds and find your path, you can win big time, and you can do much, much better than the market. You can actually do better than last year. So I think about market dynamics and conditions as just another kind of data point, but it doesn't dictate what your performance needs to look like.
So I think you nailed that. You'll nail that one. And I think this is a great kind of coaching lesson for all of us, right? Which is, let me frame it for you as if you're a real estate agent selling real estate anywhere in the world, this is what Tamir's framing is really elegant. And the idea is that if you look at the last few years, especially during the pandemic, we were in a very momentum-based market. Before we could even react to things, the market handled itself. Like our agents, our clients were moving faster than what we could even move a lot of times. And once we shifted away from that, I believe that now we are in a skills-based market. And we are always in a skills-based market, but now that skill component outshines. And as I talk to all our teams in our system, both at Real and outside, there is one clear difference in the conversations with the team leaders. That is, if a team leader, if they're being successful or not being successful, there's literally only one big philosophical difference in discussion. And that is, one team leader blames the market, the other team leader does not. That's all it is. Because they over-index on the skills that need to happen in the market. They're like, hey, look, yes, the number of transactions in this market may be down 15%, but there's still 85% of the transactions that are still happening in this market. How do we get an outsized portion of that? And that is a straight up skills conversation. And in a new market conditions, I think that I would love everyone to, kind of feel this as as some guidance and something that you can tell yourself is, when there are new market conditions, I believe that it is a call to action for us to have different skills, because our clients are thinking about the world differently, and we have to promote things differently. And to me, like, I did a call with all our brokers, and a big part of this is that we used to be in a very advisory-based market. When the market's moving so fast, we can say, hey, Tamir, do this, do that, let's get this, let's get that. And we're very advisory. But in today's market where people are unsure, I think we as advisors have to switch the way we think. And we say, we are now in an optionality market. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, there are three ways to do this. Option A can get you this. Option B, get you this. Option 3 can get you this. Which one are you feeling the most? Now it allows us to actually be much better advisors, because we're not imposing our view on them. From a skill perspective, we're actually allowing them to make a decision with our guidance associated with it. So I think that if you are an agent selling real estate anywhere in North America, anywhere in the world, if you feel like there is a market-based narrative component, I would offer you to say, what skill can I have that would change the way I think about this?
And it's probably, it's a mindset.
Yeah.
Because at the end, market conditions are just an average. It's an average of what everyone's doing. There are a lot of agents that are doing much better than the average, a lot of agents that are doing much worse. And it's up to you to be positioned where you think you should be. So, sometimes I'm talking to people, even internally, that tell me, hey, the market is super tough. We're going to have a hard time getting to this milestone. And it just gets me extremely furious, because for me, those are just excuses. I mean, we demonstrated that we can grow almost 100% year over year in the toughest market conditions. It's possible. It's possible. People are doing it. So why shouldn't you be that person? Like, what makes them better than you? It's just about deciding, being determined, and working hard. That's the only thing. It's possible. It's possible to shine even in difficult markets.
This brings me to another topic, which I think is used to be controversial like 10 years ago, and I think it's the norm now, which is this idea of a support system and having real estate teams. We have the nice part about, for those that are listening, Tamir and I get to see a pretty diverse ecosystem of how businesses are run. There are mega teams at Real that we get to see how exactly their businesses are run. There are smaller teams at Real that work as a cohesive unit. There are single leader teams that are managed by support systems of support staff, and there are solo agents. All of them can succeed in this marketplace. And in fact, our goal is to say, hey, we want to provide the building blocks for any business model so that you can pick and choose and saying, oh, I'm a big team, I can plug into the Real business model. I'm a smaller team, I can do this. I'm a solo agent, I can still benefit from this. So from a building blocks perspective, it's really powerful for us. But teams over the last 10 years, Tamir, have gotten the spotlight. What are your broad thoughts on kind of where teams are today, and any thoughts around like how that morphs in the future?
Well, I think that we cannot argue with the fact that teams is a model that works. So they took everything that a brokerage does, they got rid of everything that's not fun, irrelevant, not making money. They left that with the brokerage and they just focus on performance. So we cannot argue that teams are, it's a model that works. Now, teams come, as you said, many flavors, many sizes, a lot of personalities. You know what? I would even say that for most agents, it's probably imperative that you spend some time, a part of your career, as a part of a team. It might be for you, it might not be for you. Maybe that specific team is not for you, but I think that you will learn a lot about how to do things, and maybe about what not to do as well. It maybe will teach you as to maybe a different career path within real estate. I think it's a super relevant experience for agents. So yeah, if you're asking me about the future of teams, I think that teams will continue and capture more market share, just because the model works. And when something is working, then it just grows.
I think you nailed you nailed the first response around the business model of teams. And a lot of people have talked about how, teams of the future and how teams work is the right way, and teams can harness talent and teams can provide performance. But I think very few, almost none, have actually talked about the brass tacks of the team. Hey, here's a business model. We're going to take all the boring stuff and the painful stuff and the regulatory stuff and the liability stuff. We're going to shove that to the brokerage, and we're going to only take the performance-based stuff, and we're going to over-index on that. And I think that almost nowhere has it been put that plainly, which I think is really powerful. And we need to showcase that. That makes me also feel like if I'm a strong believer that if an agent is newer, getting into the business, in the olden days, if you were a samurai in Japan, you would go get a mentor, a sensei. Like, you would go work with somebody. You would be an apprentice. You would see how the samurai did their trade, did their craft. You wouldn't just try to figure it out on your own and then maybe get a coach for a minute. I think that newer agents getting in the business, if I were to counsel a newer agent, I'd say the fastest path to one, either figuring out whether you like this business or not, or learning the key skills in the fastest possible way from a performance perspective, would be just finding the right fit on a team, because the unfair advantage you get is insane. But you said it right. It helps you figure out what you like and what you don't like. But from a performance perspective, they're built as a performance engine, and that's super powerful.
So let me ask you a follow-on question. Do you think that now, because of the market conditions, or because the market is tougher than it was a year ago or 2 years ago, do you think that agents are more incentivized to consider joining a team now more than a year ago, for example? Like, is this the right timing for people?
I think I think that's one way to look at it, especially because the team becomes your insurance policy in a market like this, because the team already has support infrastructure, the team already has marketing infrastructure, the team has already paid for a stream of lead gen to come through. This team has coaching performance, the team has systems that you can plug in and learn. So in a situation where if I were a solo agent in Laguna Beach and I used word of mouth or referrals to, in a normal market, get my deal flow, I'm not getting anything outside of like my 35 person sphere anymore. So in a market like this, we're seeing more people just say, hey, I might spend the next year on a team because they're my insurance policy. And I think the teams are benefiting from really strong solo agents coming on and saying, wow, I'm just going to bolt on my skills and my expertise to your performance engine, because you're allowing you, in a lot of ways, I think, to me, just as the teams shed the boring stuff to the brokerage, I think the agents shed the boring stuff to the team. Right. And so now the agents can show up and say, oh, I wake up in the morning, I look at my calendar, I got 4 appointments, I can go do my 4 appointments, or I can do my 4 calls. I can spend all my time in dollar productive money generating activities. Otherwise, I'm like, oh man, I spent half the morning designing a flyer. That was a tough use of my time. So yeah, you give away a portion of the commissions for that, but now you spend 80 to 90% of your time in dollar producing activities. And the other 10%, you get the camaraderie and the support philosophy of the team in a time like this. And so I think just as in all of this, yes, a team net wins, but I think the agent who can utilize the team infrastructure well in a time like this sheds all the boring stuff to the team and the brokerage.
Yeah. And at the same time, I can understand why it could be confusing making that decision, because you might be asking yourself, okay, is this the right step for me? Am I doing it for the right reasons? Am I doing it because maybe my business is down a little bit and it might pick up at the second half of the year or something like that? So it's not an easy decision for sure. And this is where probably the personality aspect comes into play, because if you're finding a team where you truly feel they share the same DNA as you, or the team lead is a perfect kind of match to your personality, I think that adds a lot of conviction to that decision. So
yeah, I think
about
you're spot
people
on.
at the end of the day.
I think you're spot on. There's a good question in the chat about, if you are in a market and you're moving to a new market, does a team allow you to jumpstart in that marketplace? And I will tell you 100% yes, because you already have the raw materials, the skills, the knowledge, the capabilities to do it. You just don't have like nuanced market knowledge. And if the team can short circuit that learning curve for you, I think it's super powerful. But my suggestion would be, actually, in fact, there's an amazing real agent. She's going to split her business from Colorado to San Diego. And she's been in the Colorado market for 15 years. She's an amazing agent. But in San Diego, she's just getting her California license. She doesn't even know the key markets around. But for her to join a team just to get the unfair advantage to launch is powerful. But the key part there is, I'm a tell the truth kind of guy. I would just tell the team leader the truth. Just say, hey, I will give you 18 to 24 months but here's my experience. I want to join well, but when I'm on the team, I will do everything the team's way. But there's a good chance that after 24 months, I may end up doing something else. Would that be okay with you? And I think that honesty is super powerful, because it now allows the team leader to know how to position you. And it also allows you to know that there's no ill will at all. So I'd say tell the truth.
100%. And that's an advice that's applicable to every aspect of life. But I think that talking about the evolution of the agents within the team, I think that you as a team leader, you have to make sure that you constantly provide value to agents, regardless of, what production level they are at. If you want to retain people, you have to constantly provide value. So if somebody comes in and you're only good for 2 years until they learn the market, and you have nothing else to offer them beyond those initial steps or just getting them off the ground, you have a problem in your business, because probably other agents will not find value after a couple of years. So I think that maybe we're trying to oversimplify the role of the team leaders, but I think that they also have a lot on their plates.
Oh,
Even though they kind of
tremendous,
threw all the logistics and
a tremendous
boring
amount.
stuff on us.
A tremendous amount. And
Yeah.
I'll say one thing, I've been thinking a lot about this, is I actually believe that over the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see a brand new super team evolve. And what I mean by that is we are now, Tamir, you and us on the leadership team are working through this whole, this potential NAR class action lawsuit, how real estate is actually done mechanically speaking. Previously, in the old world or legacy world, a lot of teams are built on the performance structure of lead generation. So, hey, I get a Zillow Flex lead, I get ISAs calling, I can set appointments. And the buyer comp used to be easily handled on the seller side. Now, I think that every single agent, especially on a team, especially on the buyer side, has to be so much more skilled to be able to get a buyer agency agreement signed and be really on top of their game. So if you look at teams, so I pulled like 13 teams in our system in the last few days, and almost all of them were buyer heavy, especially because of it being, buyer lead gen. And I think that over the next few years, we're going to have to almost like either bridge that gap to 50-50 or become a listing attraction machine in a lot of ways, just to think about a new business model from a skill perspective.
By the way, I know that you're very concerned about all of those lawsuits in the industry and how they're going to affect the way we do business. I just wanted to remind something or add an interesting data point. In most countries in the world, buyers pay their own agents directly.
Correct.
So this is how real estate is handled in the overwhelming majority of countries, and it's working well.
Yeah.
So I think that even if we are required to make some changes, or the industry will be required to make some changes, it's working very well in other industries. Nobody likes change, but I think that the change will be smoother than most of us expect.
Yeah. This to talk about the change idea, right? One of the things that I want to talk about, and you've thought a lot about this one, is this idea of real estate as a career. And a lot of times people are like, what happens when the music stops? What happens when, there's this thing that, hey, like, I don't want to be 80 years old and putting out open house signs. And I get that. And we've had a chance to talk about this a lot and build this into our model in a lot of ways. But philosophically speaking, both you and I have had personal experiences of both real agents and non-real agents who the music has stopped in the living room. Like an agent passed away and they were the breadwinner for the family. And suddenly it has kind of a daisy chain effect on economics for everybody. What are how do you think about real estate as a career, maybe transferring a business, retirement? Like, what is the thinking behind that?
I think that it's a painful point, because as independent contractors, we have the obligation of worrying about our future and preparing for the time that we want to retire. I know that when you're living your day-to-day life and struggles and cost of living and everything, it's very difficult to think about what's going to happen in 20 years, in 30 years, but you have to prepare now. Like, one of the things that I personally never thought about, or not enough, was retirement. Like, I didn't save for retirement. And my wife kept telling me, this is irresponsible. But that's my personality, and I think that my personality matches with a lot of agents as well. And that led me to think that even though it's not our responsibility as a brokerage to take care of agents' futures beyond retirement, it really is. I mean, if we truly care about agents, we should care about agents' futures after they decide to step out of real estate or just retire. So I think we have some interesting things coming up when it comes to that. But I also wish that it was a norm in real estate of, okay, we're closing deals and we're also setting something aside for our future. This is, by the way, one of the main reasons that we created our equity program, because we understood that agents are not saving money. I mean, that's a given, and it's okay. I mean, I'm not criticizing anyone. But then we said, okay, what if we created some sort of a mechanism that will allow them to save money in a certain way through equity? That equity hopefully will appreciate. So it'll be extremely beneficial beyond only saving money. And for us, that was like a first step in trying to make a more meaningful impact on our agents' futures beyond retirement. But I think that there's more that can be done, and there's more that we want to do. But this is something that as an industry we should be concerned about.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And you know, a lot of times when I talk to agents and about the equity opportunities, they're like, well, I'm going to opt out of that. And I want, you know, I want to share with you, you've not seen me, I want to share with you what I share with them in a lot of ways, right? So if I'm talking to an agent team and I'm like, hey, listen, let's assume that Sharran and Tamir had a plumbing business. And we had this plumbing business, we had a client list, and we had, you know, we served a little area in Laguna Beach. After 20 years of doing this, we have this client list and this reputation, and we have built this equity in our business. We have a chance to unlock that equity by selling the client list, by selling the business to somebody, even though it's a small community-based business. But for the everyday agent, they live their lives, they work so hard, they don't, you know, from a risk reward perspective, they don't get paid until everything has been done. So they have to front all the expenses to actually get paid at the end. And then when they're done, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm done. This client may not transact for another 7 to 10 years. Or if they're a seller, they left the area, they're gone, they're gone. I'm never going to get their business again. And I explained to them that the idea of putting some money aside in the equity is Real's equity is a proxy for equity in your own business. Since your ability, since you can't unlock value immediately in your business right today, can we at least have a synthetic approach to that equity? So now you have your partners with us. You own a piece of the business. When our business grows and your business grows, everyone's business grows. So at least you have an equity proxy for a business that you can unlock. And you can't sell your business, but you can sell your shares if you need something. And it's super powerful when you can actually tie your ownership in your business, Tamir and Sharran Plumbing Co. or Sharran Selling Real Estate in Laguna, to something that is tangible, something that's tradable, something that is unlockable. And that seems to spark some ideas for a lot of people.
And you can also expand beyond that. I mean, for example, as an agent, if you're consistent with your production, if let's say for 3 years, you're doing anywhere from $80,000 to $120,000, you have somewhat of a predictable business. You're not able to go to a bank and say, hey, I want a line of credit based on my past performance, which could indicate my future performance as well. It's just not possible. So I think that this is one of the additional things that we're thinking about. How can we look at agents' businesses as their assets? As you said, you're building equity, but you also have an asset. How can you leverage that asset in the best possible way to actually grow your business, or use it for investments, or just have more access to capital, because you are generating revenue, but that revenue cannot be leveraged at this point in time because you're an independent contractor and banks are just not paying attention to you. So again, one more thing that we are working on.
Yeah. I also want to say, and for those that are joining us or have spent some time with us, the one thing that Real introduced last year was this idea of willable revenue share, and it's very near and dear to our hearts as a business, because it deeply aligns not just our commitment to you, but our commitment to all the work you're doing today for the rest of time. I always say whenever I talk about folks joining Real, I say, help us build a great company today so that our company can take care of your family tomorrow. Like, that's my favorite way of sharing this. And so if you're unfamiliar with that, at Real, we have a revenue share program that helps us reward our agents as partners for helping us grow the business. And as they spend more time with us, we unlock value in that revenue share program. So if something were to happen, to the licensed agent, we get to continuously pay that stream of revenue share payments to their heirs, for time to come. So it's pretty powerful that we were able to launch that, but that also shows that it shows our sustainability as a company for a long, long time, not just what we can do today. So it's a pretty cool thing. Tamir, I want to ask you this, and just to kind of finish up, maybe have some questions at the end, is first time I chatted with you, you had this pretty cool story, which I really loved. And the idea was how markets come and go, things are joyful, market gets hot, but then sometimes you have to paddle back. And your idea of surfing and paddling back. And I think that when I get stuck, I really go back to that, where I have an up day, 2 up days, 3 up days, and then a couple of down days. And I'm like, all right, I know what I'm doing today. I am paddling today. I'd love for you to maybe, as a surfer, share that, because I think it's a pretty cool analogy that people can really hold on to.
Yeah, so I started surfing 33 years ago, so very long time ago. And I think I shared that in our last year's conference. What happened in real estate between, or up to 2021 or the middle of last year, was that we were on this awesome wave. And as a surfer, and for those of you who tried surfing before, you know that when you catch a wave, it's the best feeling in the world. You feel like you're on top of the world. You can do anything you want. It's amazing. But it only lasts for a few seconds or a minute or whatever. If it was a real estate cycle, then it lasted for a few years. And then you find yourself off that wave and you have to paddle back and take your position, there where the waves break. And as you're paddling back up, there are a lot of waves coming, trying to wash you ashore. You have to, dive below them, hold your breath, paddle very hard. So it's kind of a very physical challenge as well. But eventually you do get to that point, and you're waiting for the next set. And I think that this is exactly what happened in real estate in the past year. Like, we went through this amazing wave of real estate that felt great, felt awesome to all of us. And now it's time to work hard, pedal back up, and just wait for the next wave. I've been in real estate for about 20 years. The next wave will come. I can guarantee that, like 100%. You just have to be positioned very well to be there. And for those of you who are trying to paddle back up and they're thinking about giving up, don't give up. Just get to that point again, wait. The next wave will come and you will be able to ride it and feel amazing again.
So good. I hope all of you got to see a little bit of the behind the scenes of, how we share ideas, how we talk. The other important part is you also see a lot of difference in approaches, right? I love and respect this guy, even for who he is and what he does, but we don't, as long as we have philosophical alignment, we think about the world differently. And in a lot of ways, that's good for you. That's good for you, because I always tell folks that, especially folks at Real, that we work for you.